Jon Snow spent his entire life defined by restraint. Raised in the North, his actions were bound by a rigid code of honor, quiet humility, and a strict adherence to duty above personal desire. When he eventually surrendered his northern title and bent the knee to Daenerys Targaryen, it was a gesture of personal conviction. He pledged his loyalty because he trusted her to prioritize the survival of the living. But buried beneath that deeply ingrained Stark persona was a secret that threatened the stability of the entire realm. He was Aegon Targaryen, the legitimate, undisputed heir to the Iron Throne. Jon's rejection of authority served as a psychological shield, containing an inheritance of volatile power that threatened to overwhelm his Stark upbringing. The other half of his ancestry operates on an opposing philosophy. Targaryen history is a record of manifest destiny, where rulers view conquest and absolute authority as an inherent right. Faced with that legacy, Jon panicked. He retreated into denial, leaving the proactive, aggressive instincts of his dragon blood entirely dormant. But we can map a different trajectory. If Jon rejects his fear and embraces his identity as a Targaryen, his entire approach to the world shifts. Dropping the shield of hesitation replaces a passive soldier with a motivated claimant, one who forces every lord in Westeros to pick a side between two dragons. An aggressive, early declaration of his lineage carries an immediate consequence. Daenerys loses her monopoly on the throne. She is no longer the sole savior of her house. Looking at this map of Westerosi influence, Jon holds logistical advantages. Unlike a foreign invader, he commands immediate loyalty across the North and Riverlands. A surplus of heirs poisons their alliance, replacing it with strategic deadlock. Two monarchs now command opposing armies. By forcing the issue of his birthright, Jon risks dragging a recovering population directly into a second iteration of the Targaryen civil war. Alternatively, Jon could leverage his bloodline without sparking a war. Daenerys suffered a loss of trusted advisors, leaving her isolated and operating with unchecked authority. A self-aware Jon, confident in his Targaryen status, would refuse to act as a submissive subject. He would engage her strictly as a legitimate, respected peer. Operating from a position of equality gives him the necessary leverage to challenge her decisions. He provides the friction required to slow her destructive impulses. Absolute power rots when no one is left to provide a challenge. The speed of Daenerys' mental collapse was increased by the void Jon created when he refused to stand as her counterweight. In a final hypothetical, Jon bypasses the slow grind of diplomacy to claim the throne directly through his northern alliances. He differs from his ancestors, witnessing the human cost firsthand. That history of frontline trauma acts as a necessary brake on the instinct for conquest. Fusing the rigid discipline of Winterfell with the commanding authority of Dragonstone creates a functional equilibrium. He possesses the authority to command the realm and the restraint to prevent it from burning. The friction between his Stark and Targaryen blood provides a check on his own power. He would be a ruler capable of exercising force without ever being consumed by the desire for it. But securing that authority extracts a severe toll. Holding the Iron Throne requires a steady erosion of the Stark identity he was raised with. A ruler in King's Landing must trade the open honesty of the North for the dark compromises of the capital, replacing personal honor with the cold necessity of statecraft. If Jon accepts these trade-offs to secure his power, he loses the specific temperament that made him a viable alternative to the tyrants he replaced. A crown is ultimately defined by the pieces of yourself you discard to keep it. In a landscape where everyone is fighting for control, possessing the strength to walk away remains the most absolute display of power.